Howdy, hey, howdy, ho, everyone. It has been a hot minute since I've done a live stream. And I wanted to do one for a while now because there's some pretty funky stuff on AliExpress once again. And some things that I think are infringing upon patents that I want to talk about, as well as things that have been ripped off from other YouTubers. So, let's get into the juicy details. But first, a live stream check. I want to make sure everything's working properly, so bear with me for just a moment. From other YouTubers. So, let's get in. Well, microphone's working. It looks like the stream is a streaming. Looks like we got a good connection, so we should be good to go. Let me take a sip of my drink here. This one, see, just a little bit. So, watching this after the fact, obviously, you can scroll through at any point. I don't really announce when I'm doing live streams. I just kind of feel like it and do it. So if people hop into the chat, cool. If not, I just wanted to talk about this stuff because it blows my mind. So we've talked a lot about hot ends, a lot of different components, a lot of different styles. This one caught my attention because it is a standard CR10 heatsink, and then it goes to a bimetal heat break, probably copper up top, titanium in the middle. For nothing too crazy, nothing too crazy there. But then it goes into this gigantic block, which is reminiscent of a volcano hot end, and uses what appears to be a volcano nozzle. So on one end, it's a CR10 heatsink, so it'll hook up to any Creality machine. And on the bottom end, it might as well be a volcano, which is okay. If you want high flow, cool, that should work. But, but, let me let me bring up some stuff since we're talking about high flow. I'm gonna do some stuff off screen for a minute here so I can get to what I'm trying to get to. Because I mentioned that there were some things that looked like they were going to be infringing on some patents. PHT nozzles. PHT nozzle. Uh, core heating technology. I actually kind of forget what the acronym specifically stands for. But the idea is pretty simple. And Stefan over at CNC Kitchen made a few versions that go off of this concept. He tested a few of them. They're actually really cool. And it's essentially what they're doing is they're taking the surface area and making more use of the nozzle by using more surface area to be able to melt plastic faster and thus increase the flow rate, which is cool. And it does work. But 3D Solex, from what I understand, is the patent holder for this technology. Now, Bondtech, company you probably know, they make the BMG, the Bondtech multi-gear extruders. So if you've ever seen like a Prusa Mark III or something like that, then you've probably seen a Bondtech multi-gear extruder on top of a V6 hot end. Pretty common stuff. But Bondtech licensed the technology from 3D Solex to make CHT nozzles. Now, the question is, for $1.07, do you really think that any of these Chinese manufacturers went out of their way to license that patent and manufacture them? Because my guess is they probably didn't. And the last time we saw something like this happen was when Slice Engineering, with their patent for the mosquito hot end, went from patent pending to patent granted, and we saw Triangle Labs, Mellow, etc., D-Force, all their mosquito clones just disappear from AliExpress. Now, in case you don't remember what happened with that, I'm going to catch you guys up real quick. Basically, hot end comes out from Slice Engineering. They have a patent on it. All these Chinese companies like Mello, Triangle Labs, D-Force, they have a clone of this hot end. Well, it's infringing on a patent. Long story short, AliExpress says you can't sell these anymore because they're infringing on a patent. I contacted, I think it was Triangle Labs, and asked what happened to the listings because they just disappeared overnight one day. And they said that the display of these products are prohibited. And I asked them why, and they said they don't know why. They just are. And if you look at any of the hot ends that are directly derivative of the patented portions of the design of the Mosquito hot end, because there were plenty of ones that used the same concept that just looked a little different, those disappeared as well. So, for for what it's worth, in a place like mainland China, where the idea of intellectual property kind of just doesn't really exist, like, if you have something and it's made in China, expect your product to be ripped off and made by any Chinese manufacturer and sold and undercut from you. It's eventually. That's just kind of what happens. And then end up on AliExpress, for instance. Now, Bondtech, or no, not Bondtech, 3D Solex, they're the ones that own the patent on this. And Bondtech properly licenses the patent so that they can make their version. In fact, let's pull up a proper listing from Bondtech so that we can compare and contrast. Because let's see what the differences are. So let's bring Bondtech over here real quick. So this is a proper CHT nozzle from Bondtech. They are $20 a nozzle, and these are just brass nozzles, right? This is a legit nozzle. You can get it, and it'll fit whatever, depending on whatever hot end you get. If you have Mark 8 style, you get this one. If you have anything derivative of E3DV6, you get that. But the point still remains: you can get a proper Bondtech, or you can get a knockoff for dirt cheap. Now, is this knockoff any good? That's a good question, because manufacturing these things are actually a real pain in the butt to do. So it looks like what they've done here is they've made some sort of copper insert that goes into a larger bore on a nozzle versus what Bondtech is doing. Let's see if we can get a bigger picture here. Which is what Bondtech is doing. Yeah, software stuff. Bondtech just drills the three holes into the nozzle directly. So my money is that the Bondtech stuff, or if you go from 3D Solex directly, because 3D Solex also sells the nozzle like on their own without licensing it to anyone else. Those ones are probably going to perform a heck of a lot better than whatever is going on here. But if you looked at what Stefan over at CNC Kitchen did, is he made his own versions of a CHT nozzle by taking some copper wire and inserting them cross-plane, 90 degrees offset, going through each other. And just having some copper wire to help increase surface area in the nozzle was actually enough to work just like a regular CHT nozzle. So as janky as his setup was, it worked and improved the concept well. So maybe these nozzles actually will do okay. Will they? I don't know. I want to get one, but they don't make any of these Chinese knockoff ones in a Mark 8 compatible hot end or Mark 8 style nozzle yet. I've only ever seen them in V6 style nozzles as of right now. But give it a time, guarantee we're going to see knockoffs. Now, this is just from a random no name on AliExpress. If we go here and do CHT nozzle, we're going to find that Mellow happens to be the one. I think it's Mellow that's actually manufacturing them. Could be wrong. It's just a hunch. Mellow has a knack for taking things and just making them regardless of intellectual property. They they just do whatever they feel like. And actually, we're going to get into that also because Mello did something that I'm not sure how I feel about. But we're going to talk about that. But yeah, so these Chinese Mello does actually manufacture some pretty good stuff. Their stuff is well made, believe it or not. So these things, they don't take long. It really only takes like a few weeks or a month or two for something to come out, hit the mainstream, and then someone on AliExpress to just be like, "Oh, look at there, we got our own version for dirt cheap." But anywho, we got some comments. Dave says that nozzle doesn't look that great. The OG CHT looks great. I agree. The OG the OG CHT, which fun fact, if you were thinking Bondtech was the OG, it's not true. Uh, Bondtech just licenses the patent from 3D Solex. So while we're on the topic, hold on, let's go to 3D Solex nozzle because 3D Solex has a CHT ruby tip nozzle. What was a few other styles that I think are kind of neat and I think are worth bringing up because people don't really look far into them. Or, so let's see. They got some Ruby stuff. There was a point where they had some CHT style nozzles directly from 3D Solex, although I don't see them readily right now. I wonder if they stopped selling them directly and just let Bontech do the thing and just licensed it out and just did that instead of making it themselves. Hard to say. But going back to the whole high flow category of things, another thing I want to talk about, again, going back to Stefan, when he was investigating some ideas for making things high flow. Let me take a drink here. He came up with this brilliant idea of making a little adapter that you can screw into a volcano heat block to use regular V6 nozzles. So that way you didn't have to get V6 specific nozzles if you didn't have any on hand. And he made a few of them. And I swear, like 2 weeks after that video dropped, Mello comes out with this. And in fact, a few different companies came out with this, or the same version of this, which is exactly uh, there we go. Which is exactly what I think it was Stefan. I could be wrong. I think it was Stefan that what he was showing. So someone at either Triangle Labs, Mello, or D-Force is absolutely subscribed to CNC Kitchen or channels of the like. Because I swear, anytime something interesting comes about, 2 weeks later, one of these three manufacturers is making that product professionally in a machine shop and selling it on AliExpress. Like, I haven't actually seen a whole lot of innovation come out of these companies, but when it comes to, hey, that looks cool, we can manufacture it and sell it dirt cheap, that's what they do. They take the ideas and they just make it and sell it. It says I buy the TC Basel novel came back in stock. The TC Basel. I don't know what that means. You might have to elaborate on that one for us. Uh, but continuing with this whole concept, there was another thing Stefan did, and I know we're going heavy with CNC Kitchen today, but I love CNC Kitchen. He straight up like if you haven't watched CNC Kitchen, I don't know what you're doing with your life. That he is so good at what he does. Um, so basically, here's here's what Stefan figured out, right? Stefan looked at things like the mosquito hot end, right? And he saw that they increased the melt zone outside of the heater block. The mosquito hot end did it above the heater block, but he figured, you know what, if I could just take a regular V6 nozzle, which is, it's pretty small, and if I just, oh, I'm sorry, if I took a regular V6 heat block, which is, a small rectangle, and I put a V6 nozzle on it, but I just added some copper nuts onto it to fill the gap space. That's kind of just adding more thermal mass around the nozzle, and if it's touching the heat block, it should also technically get hot. Would that work? Turns out it does. You should check out his video on it. And the moment that happened, Mello said, you know what? He's just using some copper nuts. I bet we could just make a little adapter to do the same thing. And then, oh yeah, this came out. It's the exact same thing in theory, in concept, that Stefan did with just two cheap copper nuts, only this is machine specific to the purpose. So I'm just like, man, they really. Someone over at Mello is a huge fan of Stefan. For real. Like, every time he comes out with a discovery and he tests something, if it's something that can be manufactured in a machine shop really quick, Mello is on the case and is ready to capitalize on that man's ideas. Like, every time. And it's not just Mello that does this. And there is a version from Triangle Labs that is a little different. That is the exact same concept, where it's just increasing the melt zone outside of the block by just extending a portion of the block with some copper. Simple in concept, and apparently quite effective. So people buy it, and it's dirt cheap. Because let's see, how much is this product? It's $6.50 plus a little bit of shipping. If you're gonna buy a few parts from this from LO anyway, just throw one in there for the heck of it. Congratulations! You know what? You don't need to swap out your J-head V6 heat block for anything like a volcano heat block. You just get an adapter. Boom, done. So you could do that, or it's just adapt it the other way where we were just talking about. If you have a volcano adapter, but you just have V6 nozzles, there's endless creativity when it comes to what people discover with 3D printing. I just find it fascinating that on AliExpress, these three manufacturers are just super quick to capitalize on the concept. And part of me wonders because, CNC Kitchen, they have their own store, where they sell their own products they're really good stuff from what I hear. And if you're looking for things like brass inserts, I'm pretty sure, uh, like threaded inserts, I'm pretty sure CNC Kitchen, that's one of the things they sell. Like straight up, I would say, you know what, if you have the chance, go support him and his channel and do that instead of buying something from a company that just rips off his ideas. I don't know if necessarily he's the originator of the idea, but he's certainly the first person I've ever heard talk about these little concepts and just trying to see if they work and testing it, finding out they do work. So, support the creators that are making the progress, man. Like it's cool that there's people out there that are making this, but show some love to CNC Kitchen. So Dave says the .5 tungsten carbide Basel nozzle high flow. Basel nozzle. Carbides. I just don't know what Basel means. Basel nozzle. Came back inside. There are some tungsten carbide nozzles that I was looking at. And in fact, you know what? Let's talk about tungsten carbide nozzles for a second here. Carbide. Wow, I can't type today. Carbide nozzle. There's one in particular. Here we go. The Fadus nozzles. So these are in fact actual tungsten carbide nozzles. I want to just state for the record though, these are not fully tungsten carbide. Only the tip is tungsten carbide. The rest of it is copper. This big old block around here is copper. I'm assuming these threads are copper and they're plated. But just the tip, just the tip is carbide. Basel nozzle. You know, let me Google it. You know what? Basel nozzle 3D printer. It came up as a search result. Whoops. Basel nozzle. The Basel nozzle. Basel by Rentable Socks. Okay, hold on. We're gonna put this up here for a second, and we're gonna take a look at this because why not, right? Basel. Is this what you were talking about? It is sold out. Dave says he's got a few tungsten carbide nozzles, a spool CA, and 3D Maker Engineering. So if this is a solid tungsten carbide nozzle, that thing should last forever. It's V6 and Mark 8 compatible. Interesting. Yeah, well, the thing is with nozzles, any nozzle worth getting isn't going to be cheap. But the reality is, if you have a workhorse machine and you print the same size or you print something over and over and over and over again, the same thing for like a production line of some sort, then investing in one nozzle so that you just keep running it and you can maintain the same consistency for months on end is absolutely worth spending the money on rather than changing out nozzles and ruining a print halfway through because the bore of the nozzle changed over time. So that's why I run M2 hardened steel nozzles for right now. I've been looking at tungsten carbide nozzles. I've actually been really interested in them. Apparently, the thermal conductivity of tungsten carbide is actually pretty good. So, but yes, I have. This is the first one I've seen that is a completely 100% tungsten carbide nozzle. It's really cool. One of the nozzles that I was really looking at, hold on, Diamondback nozzle. Ah, since we're on the nozzle discussion, this is the one to beat, from what I can understand. So, interesting thing about these nozzles, right? This is a diamonds. Well, it's a diamond nozzle. It's a not specifically. Uh, it's a diamond something or other nozzle. I'm sure it says somewhere here. Um, but yes, it is an insert. This is an insert, and this is brass, which I'm not thrilled that this is brass right here. But this right here, so properties of diamond. You can't get anything that conducts heat better than diamond. At least not as far as I'm aware. Diamond is extremely heat conductive. Like if you were to eat if you had a bowl of soup and you had a spoon made of diamond and that soup was hot, the instant that diamond spoon touched the soup, you would burn your hand. That's how conductive that stuff is. But it's also really hard. Diamond is one of the hardest substances we have on this planet. So it should be pretty abrasive resistant. The one thing about diamond, though, is when diamond is heated up for a prolonged amount of time without being under pressure, it is possible for diamond to revert back to carbon. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to happen in this use case, but it is something we know about, and I don't know if this ever will ever get hot enough to do that. I don't know if this will ever experience the kind of physics to make that happen. Um, but this actually goes back to something back from many years ago, a patent that I had found for a diamond heatsink for computer CPUs. And I thought, you know what? I mean, if you could make a heatsink out of diamond, would you? And this was kind of like the thing that got discussed a lot is like, even if you could manufacture it, it wouldn't last forever because of certain issues. And there is, I think it says polycrystalline diamond. I think they called it. I could be wrong. I forget what I read on the advertisements for it, but this thing, in theory, should last forever for the insert. The rest of it being brass, I would rather have seen something a little bit better than brass on here. Dave says he's not sold on inserts. I'm not sure I'm sold on inserts either. Because look, filament is coming down the bore of this nozzle. You know, it's gonna scrape and eventually wear away. Especially if you got what is it? Glow in the dark filament has tungsten in it, I think, or no? What? It's either white. It's either white or glow in the dark. Both of those have no, is it titanium powder? I forget, but I know glow in the dark is very abrasive. But there's also like carbon fiber nylon, for instance. That stuff is going to chew through your average nozzle. Um, E. Carter says depends. Are you likely to print at 700 plus degrees Celsius? I'm assuming you're referring to the issue about the diamond reverting back to carbon. Probably not. And if you are printing at 700 plus degrees, I want to know what you're printing. That'd be nuts. Yeah. I wonder. What is the highest temperature filament? Now that I think about it, there's some. I mean, peak is pretty high up there. I mean, you see copper blocks advertised up to 550 degrees Celsius compatible, but I don't think I've ever seen any filament require temperatures to go anywhere near that. I've seen peak hit close to like 350, 400 ish, but I don't think I've actually ever seen peak or anything like that get that high. So, but yeah, I mean, in all fairness, the diamond tip on this is probably going to last forever. But the brass that it is inserted in, questionable. Now I know that I think it was E3D. Weren't they coming out with a successor to the Nozzle X, where it is a special diamond coating, multiple layers of diamond coating, all on the entire nozzle, and they claim that it should never ever wear out, and it has like a lifetime warranty against wear, according to what I had heard. I think I don't want to attribute that to someone who I don't know the name of, but I was watching a video, and I think it was Sanjay Mortimer. I think that may have said it. I don't want to say that it was or wasn't because I don't remember. Rest in peace. Uh, you know, he was a good dude. Uh, that being said, he was pretty confident in that diamond coating. But those were going to be for the Revo nozzles. I don't know if they were going to make them in V6 or much less likely any Mark 8 styles. But let's see. E. Carter says, still learning two printers, SLA and FDM, bought in the past month. But I've not seen anything over 500 degrees needed for FDM in my research so far. I concur. Ah, Cyclord. Obsidian. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It's kind of a weird word. Yeah, the obsidian nozzles. I haven't seen much about them actually. Now, since we're on this nozzle train, hold on, let's look up. If there's any new information. Let's go on E3D's website. Do they have anything? No, there's volcano stuff. V6 nozzle, brass, hardened steel, brass nozzle. I see stuff for Nozzle X, but not the Obsidian. I don't think they're released yet. Trying to find an article, perhaps. Release dates. Launch soon. There's some videos on it, but I don't want to play someone else's video, copyright and all that. But yes, that is in fact the nozzle I was looking at. So supposedly they were saying I was reading a conversation with one of the people that was developing it, and they were saying if you can manage to destroy this nozzle, not only will he pay for a new nozzle, but he'll pay to have the filament shipped over to him so he can analyze the filament and see what could have possibly worn down this obsidian nozzle. Sounds great. Is it too good to be true? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Blackboard, any plans on covering Clipper? Haha! Clipper. I just tried Clipper out for the first time just the other day. Call me a little bit late to the party. So once I get familiar with Clipper, I'm surely going to talk about it. As of right now, I'm still just doing everything on Marlin, and I've got some fun stuff coming in from AliExpress that I want to talk about. So some upgrades to the chairman, the Ender 3 chairman. That's my workhorse machine because it's not just a pro at this point. At this point, it's like a $1,200 machine, so it's not a pro. It's not an executive. It's the chairman. But I got some cool stuff coming. Let's see. Let me take a drink here. Let's get back to it. Got a nozzle kick real hard there for a minute there, bud. You got some fun stuff that I wanted to go over. You know what? We're just 3D printer hot end. What happens if we just not Google, but search it? Because I know I've been seeing some wild stuff as of late. What is it when I just search that term? Usually when I search these things, it's like one thing leads to another sort of thing. Hold on. We started out with this, which is some Mark 8 volcano craziness that I thought was kind of neat. And it's only like, dude, this thing is like $15. I'm kind of thinking I kind of want to get one just for shites and giggles. just to see what happens. Because it looks, there's no reason why it wouldn't work, though I don't think it's really necessary. I wonder if the nozzle is proprietary in any way. I know that heat block certainly is. So I don't know really where you would get spare parts for this. But let's see. The dreaded rabbit hole. Oh, dude, I love going down the rabbit hole. You never know what you're going to find. You might find gold in a rabbit hole. You might, most of the time, you just find dirt. But sometimes, sometimes it's an absolute win. Hmm. Ah, hold on. Here we go. Haha. We were talking about that melt zone extender earlier that Stefan did with just two copper nuts. Well, look what Triangle Lab came out. Their own version of that. It is literally just a copper nut specifically designed for your hot end to extend it to go to make a volcano nozzle fit on a V6 sized heat block. Granted, that particular hot end's a little different than your standard V6, but let's see what else we got going. Carter says, "I found 3D printers. My wallet regrets it, but my creative mind loves it." Oh, buddy, I know the feeling. It it's painful because you there's always something else you can do to make it just a little bit better, and then you spend then you start to go insane for a few days trying to figure out what you just did, why it stopped working properly, and then you figure it out, and then you're like, haha, success. Cyclord says they found the DDG wind in a similar clickfest. Yeah, going through here. Okay, hold on. There's actually something that's been kind of popping up that I got to figure out. So you guys know the Revo, the E3D Revo has the nozzle and heat brake all in one, so that you can do the quick nozzle changes and all that. It's cool. Um, but correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't E3D, they patent the nozzle portion? I feel like I remember them saying something about that ecosystem was patented so that you could really only get a replacement part from them. And I feel like it was the nozzle, but I could be totally wrong on that one. I gotta document what I find better. But I've been seeing these pop up a lot, and all I can think of is, man, that looks like a Revo nozzle, So, but what is it going into exactly? There's I mean, the Revo uses a circular heatsink, and the Revo uses a ceramic heater. So, sitting here, like, is this gonna fit on a Revo, or is this specific to like one of their own like Chinese versions of a Revo? You know what I mean? You know what? Hold on. Let me. Like, we're here. We're having fun looking. Look, let's just Revo nozzle. Let's see. Okay. Let's compare and contrast. Okay, it's definitely a little different. Okay. This is a genuine Revo nozzle. We got the nozzle. We got some thermal mass right here, heat break, and threads. So then, what the heck is this? Similar. Syke says, yes, the cold side is open, the hot side is patent pending. Interesting. Then what am I looking at here? What is this? What does this even go to? Because this is not a Revo nozzle. Curtin says, "Yep, got my E3 V2 running awesome. Printed parts for itself, no sweat. Waiting on delivery of upgrades, CR Touch, better Bowden gear, etc." Question for the group, though, is a Fetus Dragon worth spending the money on? You know what? Let's talk about that. Since we're here, we're all together. Fetus Dragon. Probably totally misspelled the crap out of that. The knockoff of the mosquito. AliExpress has a clone of the Dragon Hot on. Very poor quality. The difference in quality can be seen. Very. I want to warn our customers not to be nice. This is a heat break on. Let me see if I can just Google it real quick. Greatest Dragon. Oh, it's basically the same thing as a Rapido. Well, actually, there's a few different versions of the dragon, but I think I see what's going on. So the reason why I'm not finding it in AliExpress is because the Fetus Dragon is using component design that is derivative of the mosquito, which is prohibited to display on AliExpress. And I believe it's because Slice Engineering's patent prevents them from infringing on said patent and selling knockoffs of technologies that are within the patent for the mosquito. So you'll find a few versions that are similar to the dragon, but they'll neglect or they will not neglect, but they'll purposely not put in things like the four bracing posts that go from the heatsink to the heat block. So I think that's like the big area of contention with these hot ends. Like because the claim to fame with the mosquito was one-handed nozzle changes, which really cool. Honestly, the mosquito hot end is looks like a properly engineered piece of machinery. Like I have no doubt it works really well, and it competes, I think, directly with the easeability of the Revo in a lot of ways because they're very easy to work with. They're very well made, but that patent made things get really, really sketchy. In fact, I think even the ones on that were in Amazon, I think sell resellers that were reselling like the clones of the mosquitoes and I think derivative of the mosquito were actually getting hit with lawsuits from Slice Engineering. I think I heard something about that, and they just so instead of selling it, they pulled all of it and disposed of them, or there was an agreement to give a huge percentage of the profits as a royalty to Slice Engineering. Something like that, if I remember correctly. Would also love, Recycler would also love a video on rigid mounting if you get time. So rigid mounting, I've seen that being used on Voron builds, like the Voron V0s when they're going wicked fast, like faster than I thought a 3D printer could reasonably print. And the rigid mount is really important for that because if you don't have a secure mount, that thing is going to go flying. So I don't have anything currently that requires a rigid mount. 3D Experiments says, "Hey guys," and he adds me and says, "Can you turn up your mic a bit?" Is my microphone? Hold on, maybe I can move. If I move it closer to me, is that any better? How's that? I got a little meter that tells me how loud my mic is, and I don't want to clip and make it like destroy people's ears. But I think I'm already on max volume for this. I think the only thing I can reasonably do is bring the microphone closer. But thank you for the heads up. So let's see. Okay. Okay, doke. We were talking about hot ends. One of them. One of the. Keto. Ah, here it is. This one's kind of neat. This one incorporates a few different things. It's a big ceramic heater right down there. V6 mounting style. Thin-walled heat break. Titanium. Pretty standard at this point. Although it lacks any support structure, so if you like crash this thing, that heat break might have some problems. That's always the thing that first off, if you're crashing at all, that's usually user error or configuration error, which sucks, but it does happen. Um, Man, I feel I could have sworn there was a fan that was built into this, but I might be wrong. Why did I think there was a fan on this? I thought this thing had a fan and it blows like down towards the nozzle. I might be tripping. Interesting. Interesting. Let's see. Hold on. So we've got there was I swear I was the other day I was just getting some unholy amalgamation of a hot end that was popping up here and there. If we cycle through enough of these things, they something weird is bound to pop up. It's like just like a V6 with a ceramic heater. Ceramic heaters are becoming really popular. They're kind of more versatile, but oh, hey, here we go. We were just trying to figure out what. No, it wasn't that one. I got too many tabs. Too many tabs. Let's close some tabs here. Which tab was I just on? There we go. We were just trying to figure out what that weird nozzle was, right? Because it looked like a Revo nozzle, but it wasn't a Revo nozzle because it was physically different. This one is the same concept. Talking about right here is the Revo, where the nozzle and the heat break are one in the same. We found the hot end for it, guys. Sweet. Okay, let's look at the design here. All right, all metal. How does it? How does it go in though? Oh, I see. Oh, interesting, interesting. So with the Revo nozzles, the threads were up in the heat break, or at least there were some threads in the heat break. With this, they're just relying on the threads down at the nozzle. I wonder if that is enough to avoid patent infringement. Interesting. Steel. I wonder. It's probably a reason why they're using stainless instead of titanium. Probably just cost measures and easeability of manufacturing. This is actually kind of interesting. This one looks like it could be a nice little upgrade, although I don't think this is going to have the easeability of swapping like the Revo system does. The Revo is got some like a spring tension system that lets it set and apply really easily, whether it's hot or cold. This looks like something that you'd probably need to do while it's still hot. So the little design changes that got here changed a bit here and there. E. Carter says Bowden kit just got delivered. Rock on. Did you get a what did you get? Did you get a Capricorn Bowden tube and some couplers? I'm still debating what it is I want to do for research on a new hot end because there's a lot of good choices. But there is one hot end, since we're talking about hot ends, that I am definitely going to at some point get. And boy, howdy, wouldn't you know it, it's from Micro Swiss. And they're not going to be on AliExpress yet. Because, buddy, I don't know if y'all have seen this, but it's about time we talk about it. The new Micro Swiss next generation direct drive system. Oh, buddy, this one's got me excited. So this, they're claiming the industry shortest filament path. Now, there's a few things about this that I think are finally something interesting other than just copying the concept of the Chimera, the E3D Chimera. We've seen the Chimera, we've seen things like it, they're everywhere. This one is strange because you've got, what is that? I don't want to say the wrong thing. Is it a pinion gear? Gear? Forget what type of gear it is. Sorry, I'm derping for a minute here. But this is actually properly wild. Utilizes the same concept as the bottom end of any of the other hot ends that you can get from Micro Swiss, which I like because the bottom of these hot ends are super easy to disassemble for cleaning and maintenance reasons. So win, absolute win. And then they got this kind of the way they have the motor mounted is interesting. It's unlike any other one. Bevel gears, is that what I'm trying to go for? Is that the word I'm looking for? Bevel gears. I'm I'm thinking the only reference I have for this is like in the differential in the back axle of a Jeep that I was working on with a friend, and for whatever reason, uh, pinion came to mind. I don't know why, but going back to 3D printer stuff, this one's cool. Now they only currently have it for like a mounting system for the Ender 3 right now, which is fine. But I'm waiting for them to come out with one that has a linear rail because I love my linear rails. I just once you go linear, you don't go back. Linear is just so much easier to deal with in life. Carter says he's come up with I've come up with my own idea for a remote direct drive system, but I'm not game enough to try it yet. Ooh, well, when you do try it, you should let us know. Thing that's cool. If I find if any of y'all ever come up with something cool, like share it with me. We might just share it on a live stream or something if you guys want. Let's get ideas out there. Let's get cool stuff made. Let's work together. Let's do stuff. Let's advance this technology. But we are my friend on his Ender 3 is going to be getting this direct drive system for his Ender 3. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be comparing the Micro Swiss direct drive system against the genuine Chimera that we have. The thing about the Chimera is the lack of support for any sort of metal mounted system that isn't just 3D printed is pretty bad. You have to rely on a lot of really janky designs. E3D didn't really come up with any first party designs for the Chimera for any of the like popular printers. They just left it up to the community, which I mean, don't get me wrong, the community comes up with some pretty good stuff, but I'm finding that I'm probably going to have to design something on my own to get the Chimera to work properly. We had a catastrophic failure with the Chimera that was on the Ender 5 Plus. There's a reason we call the Ender 5 Plus that we have the Jank Master 9000 because it was very janky the way we had it set up, but it worked for a bit. One day, after a very long print, I come downstairs. The Chimera is just scraping. It is getting it's falling off the mount. It's scraping, dragging across the printed surface. Parts are just flown everywhere. Like nuts and bolts are missing. I still haven't found all the pieces yet. I don't know what the heck happened, but something catastrophic went down with the mounting system. I knew it was inevitable, and it finally happened, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna have to design my own mount. There was someone who used to manufacture some aluminum mounts for the Chimera, for the Ender 5, but they no longer manufacture them, which makes me think maybe I need to get my own CNC machine and start making some aluminum components for 3D printers. As much as I love 3D printing in plastic, the printer parts themselves, I firmly believe, should probably be made out of metal. But let's see, going back to the comments. Let's see, 3D experiments. The Mellow NF Sunrise, in my opinion, is one of the best extruder hot ends for Creality printers. And E. Carter says, hint, the venerable, veritable dog bone. Venerable dog bone. I can't read today. Well, certainly sounds interesting. But yes, we we've gone hard on the discussion of hot ends and stuff. So I've actually got some. I mean, I got a few videos planned that I'm going to talk about. One of them is about cleaning a build surface, but doing it a little better. And another video I got planned coming up is going to be a technical discussion about increasing mechanical resolution of stepper motors through some by changing out certain parts, which will be fun because I think I've got a slight problem with. I've probably worn the lead screw nuts on the Z-axis for my Ender 3 at this point. It's got like thousands of hours on those lead screw nuts. Time to replace them, but I'm going to upgrade them with something nice and new and something with a higher mechanical resolution. So we're going to see if that actually improves quality or not. That's for the future. Those are coming in soon. So, uh, those of you who are still using Bowden tubes like I am, I just sent in a replenishment of compression fittings over to Amazon. If you're looking for something a little bit more secure than a pneumatic coupler. So those have been doing pretty good. I will never use anything other than a compression fitting anymore. I tried everything, man. I really have. And compression fittings, in fact, compression fittings are so good. Hold on. Hold the phone. Compression fittings are so good, even Micro Swiss uses them now. Yeah, baby. Let's see, E. Carter says, venerable, deserves respect, dogbone. Think of how a wishbone suspension based drivetrain works. I'm thinking. You're going to have to show me. I know what a dog bone suspension is, but I'm not sure how that applies necessarily. But I am always interested to see something new. There's something I've been wanting to do for a while now, and I can't say yet that I can do it, but I'm hoping to be able to go to the factory where Microswiss is one day and tour the factory. Um, I was in talks with one of the guys over there about doing that. They're still getting things set up. I think they've recently, within the last few months, have moved locations. So it's been a while since I asked, but that'd be so cool, dude. Get to talk with those guys. I love their products. Like I know people call me people like yeah I'm a shill. People have accused me for working for MicroSwiss and just, I don't work for them, but I do like their stuff. I like their stuff a lot. It's been super reliable. But yes, so Cyclone said the Prusa Mini also has compression fittings, and you're absolutely right. That's actually where I first saw them. So it's the full story of how this all happened. Um, so I was looking for a solution to my Bowden tube slipping issues because Bowden tube slippage is really annoying. Happens eventually. And the one thing I hated about Micro Swiss hot ends is the little collet right up here. That little plastic collet fails so often. It annoyed the ever loving crap out of me. So, I've been talking with Microswiss back and forth through some email, and I asked them to make me. Well, hold on, let me back up for a minute here. I saw that Prusa on their Prusa Mini was using a compression fitting, and I'm like, you know what? I just installed one of those on the water line to my refrigerator, and that thing is really solid. And that thing is a polyethylene tube, not very much unlike the tubes we use for made out of PTFE for our Bowden tubes. You know what? That might be worth a shot. So then I started looking online for compression fittings and trying to figure out what the thread sizes were and all that. And I found one manufacturer that sold something that looked like it would probably work. And then I'm like, cool, I got the part in, but I don't have anything to screw it into. So then I'm like, okay, I got an idea. Microswiss. I tried contacting the companies in China and asking them if they would make me a one-off heatsink. They were not interested in doing that. Microswiss, I said, you know what? Let me contact them. And I asked them and said, hey, if I pay you guys, would you guys be willing to make me a CR10 heatsink, but instead of using a collet, can you just put in M10 threads for me up here? And they asked me why. And I showed them the listing on AliExpress of compression fittings and that I was going to use. And I'm like, because I want to try using these as an experiment and see if it works. And they're like, oh, okay. They're like, yeah, we can do it. And I'm like, okay, cool. Just bill me for it. I'll pay for it. Well, they made that heatsink for me. It came in the mail, nice and quick. Made right in their shop. They only ever made two of them, as far as I know. I bought both of them. I screwed the compression fitting in, went in perfectly, and then I tested it out, and sure enough, everything worked way better than this little collet, and way better than a pneumatic coupler. And then I realized, aha, Prusa was definitely onto something. So at this point, I'm like, okay, we have a solution because I went through about 400 or 500 hours of printing without any Bowden tube slippage at all. I'm like, huh. So then I started getting the fittings in for ones that would just screw in to like a Mark 8 hot end and most extruders. And now I'm at the point where I actually have them custom manufactured to my specifications, and they're being so that I can have them so that they're shipped to me, and then I can put them on Amazon, so that people can get a solution where they just buy one thing and the one thing works forever, and they're just done with it. I don't like the idea. There's this economy that's been made of selling pneumatic couplers because they know it's going to fail. I hate that. I just want the product to work. So that's why I decided to really ramp up these compression fittings. So now Micro Swiss, when they made me the heatsink, they decided they would do some testing of their own. And turns out they also really liked the way they worked, which is when they started trying them out in some of their stuff. This is a relatively new product compared to their CR10 heatsink. And I think, you know what, more power to them. I think it's the right way to go. The reason they don't do any threads on the existing stuff like the CR10 heatsink is because the heatsink is a physically different shape. Its dimensions have changed to accommodate the threads, and that would make it incompatible with other parts that are already built into an ecosystem for this. So they don't do that. Part of me wants to just contact MicroSwiss and ask them, hey, if I like bulk purchased like 100 of them, could I like do a collaboration maybe and make one-off heat sinks to sell so that people who are just running a Bowden setup can run it and put it under maybe a different name. Part of me wants to do that, but I don't know. I mean, this is their thing. I mean, I've talked about the Chinese knockoff stuff with all the stuff on AliExpress. There's a ton of knockoffs of this design, but it's really hard to beat the OG product from that made here in the US. It's good stuff. Back to the comments. Cyclord, I have directly screwed it into my Ender 3 Max and I did not even tap the M10 threads. So, fun fact. Turns out, the reason I said M10 originally is because when I looked at pneumatic couplers, there's M10 and 1/8 inch BSP or MPT. And they're all so similar that they can be interchanged except for M10. M10 is a non-tapered thread, whereas a 1/8 inch NPT is basically the same thread pitch and diameter, but it's a tapered design. And that's what Mark 8 hot ends use is 1/8 inch NPT or 1/8 inch BSP. They're kind of interchangeable for the most part. Um, M10 would need to have a tap, and I have a video of it, a tap to remove a little bit of excess thread so that the threads are straight up and down, not tapered. But the kits that I sell are the tapered ones, so they'll fit directly in a Mark 8 hot end. They'll fit directly in most extruders if they're threaded. So the kits that I sell uh, should be good for most any hot end and extruder compression or hot end and extruder setup that uses threads. Let's see. E. Carter, I came across reports by MS that they were keeping the current coupler system to retain compatibility with our DD system. Yes, that's what I was told. That's and it's true. So that's one of the reasons that you're not going to see the threaded version of this heatsink on their site because well, in order to accommodate the threads, they had to make the heatsink wider, so it's no longer within spec. It'll only work as a standalone product. It won't be able to work with the rest of the ecosystem of products that they have. So that's understandable, you know. I feel I feel like if they made a if they named it different and they noted it that it's not compatible and they just put threads in it, it'd be so much better. Come on, Microswiss, you can do it. I believe in you. But you know what? Failing that, you might be able to email Microswiss and just request a custom version. You might have to pay more for it, but they might do it. I don't know. They did it for me when we were talking about design discussions, and as far as I know, I have the only two in existence that are custom made. But yeah, I agree. Carter says missed the opportunity for a wider audience. I think when you compare when you compare pneumatic couplers to Bowden collets, the Bowden collets do actually do a better job than the pneumatic couplers, in my experience. That being said, having threads opens up the possibility for compression fittings, but because compression fittings are only just kind of like now getting into the scene of popularity for retaining Bowden tubes, I think it's a redesign that they have to take into account. It's sure it's someone is kind of like, if only it was just a little bit different. But that being said, I'm not sure why they couldn't just modify the heatsink and make it more like this, like this heatsink. Because you see, they have it. This is not. I don't think this is an insert. I think this is machined directly into the heatsink like this. Carter says, "Down under will cost more than it's worth." Cyclor, it's the same. I'm from India, and anything imported gets 80% value added tax extra. So really can't test or buy a lot of stuff. Ooh, buddy, that hurts. 80%? Whoa. Man, I thought taxes were bad right now here in the United States. I don't know if I could contact Microswiss and have them make me a bulk purchase of custom CR10 heat sinks with threads on them to use my compression fittings that I sell. Would you guys be down for that? I could put them on Amazon, and then you guys could buy it. It's enough, I think. It would only be able to be, guaranteed to work with genuine Microswiss parts, but it wouldn't be compatible with any of the other Microswiss components, but other like for the direct drive system. But honestly, if at this point you're getting a direct drive system like this old style one right here, if you're getting that instead of the NG, the next generation one, what are you doing with your life? Get the NG. The NG's cool. But even on their just their extruders, aha, compression fitting, which is awesome. That once I saw them making them, I'm like, yes, they took the design cue and they're doing it right. Now the thing about it is, this is Microswiss. We just talked about how all these companies in China, when they see a good idea, regardless of whether or not the intellectual property is patented or not, they will clone it and they will make it. Which means it's really just a matter of time before we start seeing clones from China, from either Mello, D-Force, Triangle Labs, making something like this, something like this, and I don't really know how to feel about it because Microswiss put a lot of time and effort into designing something like this. This setup right here is actually unique. I've never seen a setup quite like it. But it is just the nature of these companies in China to just make it. Microsoft does what they can to negate that by manufacturing in the United States, so their intellectual property is not being sent over to China in a schematic of any sort that can just be machined to some CAD spec. They're all everything's in house, so it's going to take longer for Mellow Triangle Labs D-Force to clone it. But mark my words, given it enough time, there's gonna be clones of this. There's gonna be clones of extruders that use compression fittings because Micro Swiss made ones that have it. And these companies pay attention to the companies that innovate. I guarantee there will be knockoffs. That is just how the world works. Going back to comments. E. Carter says, in OZ, our prices are automatically 30% more than the US. Ooh, I want to say I could feel your pain, but I don't know if I could feel 30% more pain than I usually do. And often they make it better than the real thing. Well, I mean, to be fair, there are some pretty interesting things that come out of China. Like, things that are usually derivative, but I don't usually see things that are like originated there first. But definitely some cool stuff. Sykes says, I guess they haven't cloned it yet because of less coverage about compression fittings. You're the only YouTuber who even talks about it. I do feel like the only YouTuber who talks about it, but I think most YouTubers have moved on to direct drive systems and therefore they don't deal with it. The reason that I'm insistent about using them is because my system that I use is still a Bowden tube system, and I stick with Bowden tube for one reason, and that's easeability of maintenance. My machines will run for thousands of hours at a given clip, and I just need them to work. And when something goes down, when something needs to be repaired, time is money. Direct drive systems have all their components in such a clustered, compact system that you end up having to disassemble more components to get to one tiny thing to fix what would normally be a quick issue, and then you're disassembling a lot more stuff, and for what, a marginal improvements in some qualities of 3D printing. But if you have a well-tuned machine with a Bowden tube, the differences are not as dramatic as you might expect. So I'm not printing at like insane speeds. I'm not printing with insane materials. I'm printing the same thing over and over and over again because that's one of my products that I sell. And it's just I need reliability and I need easeability of maintenance when it comes to maintenance, and just having parts separated from each other, having a hot end over here and an extruder over here makes diagnoses and makes maintenance just 10 times easier. Let's see. E. Carter. Don't need a schematic. Hell, I clone stuff a person use quite often when I can. Just need to study the design carefully. Honestly, yeah, there's a million and one ways you can go about reverse engineering something. I'll just say that when something has a schematic of some sort, and you have something like, let's say you want to have some. Okay, give a real example. There's actually something that I designed that I want to have machined, and have like 100 of them made at a time. Well, manufacturing is cheaper in China. Thing is, if I give them my design, there's no guarantee they won't just take that design, manufacture it themselves, and then sell it on AliExpress and undercut the sales for my own product that I paid them to make. It happens all the time. Versus if I have it manufactured in the United States, or preferably if I personally manufacture the product myself, which is what I like to do, then I can control every aspect of the design process, the manufacturing process, and retain the schematics so that they can't rip it off as easily. There's something to be said about There's something to be said about the original design being usually a little more well thought out. I see knockoffs that, like, for instance, when bimetal heat brakes came out, I'm pretty sure the first time I saw them was when Slice Engineering came out with them for their mosquito hot end, and it was a great idea. So then I saw a bunch of Chinese manufacturers just slap copper in the spots that it would be for the heat brakes that Slice Engineering was putting out. But they didn't understand quite why or how it was created. So it looked like it was the same thing, but physically it wasn't, and they had issues with them. So there's certain reasons for why something is designed a certain way. A lot of these manufacturers are good at copying it, but they're not always good at understanding what they're copying. So, but again, give it enough time and they'll probably figure it out. Psychlord says, anyways, gotta go. Lovely chat. Good day, guys. Have a good one, Psychlord. It was nice seeing you, having you for the chat. And in fact, I think today that is probably going to be it for this live stream as well. It's been a good chat. You can expect some videos coming up in the next week or two. And I will see you guys next time. Remember, measure twice,